So you want to have a bougie, boozy wedding. What do you actually have to know in order to have alcohol at your wedding in Utah?
Having alcohol at your wedding sounds like a pretty serious, awesome party, but do you actually know everything that it entails? But we will cover all of that in this episode. All right, back to the beginning. Just saying,
Go back to the beginning.
Go back to the beginning.
This is what I am.
This
This is what I was saying.
saying.
Inigo Montoya is a great example of someone who is having an awesome alcoholic experience.
Yes. Just don't take him to your wedding.
I would love that.
He would be the liability part.
I know, it's true. Drinking, stabbing people. So, alcohol and weddings. We have some stories. One of my favorites is, do you remember when we were managing a venue?
Mm-hmm.
And she was managing. I was her assistant. Best job ever.
Oh.
And I was the on-site manager
Mm-hmm.
for that event. And there was alcohol at this wedding. I'm pretty sure it was an open bar.
Mm.
And you called me. And do you remember what you said to me?
I do, actually. I do remember. I basically called you and I said, hey, I hear that there are drunk people down on the golf course. Can you please go chase them off before we have to call the cops?
Mm-hmm. So I took the support staff girl that was working with me that night, and we went and trekked down. We couldn't even use a golf cart. We didn't have access to the golf carts. So we were trekking on foot down the very steep hilliness into this golf course. And you wouldn't think about this. There are not lights on a golf course because no one golfs at night. So it was pitch black out on that golf course, and we were trying to chase down these drunk singing people.
Oh.
And that's definitely on the list of things I never thought I would do before I worked in weddings, is play the world's weirdest game of sardines, because we love to play sardines in Utah, don't we, when we're kids? But it was the weirdest thing ever, tried in the pitch black out there searching for these drunk people that were partying on the golf course.
This story is a perfect example of what complications might happen at your wedding if you have alcohol there. Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to cover today, just because we know all the things that that might happen, and we don't want you to be surprised. We also don't want you to be upset or sad that your day didn't turn out the way that you expected it to be. So
know all the things so you can be prepared.
Yes. And we say this with weddings in general, but you definitely, when you have alcohol, you need to expect the unexpected.
Yes. So, number one, the very first thing to be aware of is your venue's rules and restrictions. A lot of venues, especially in Utah, are just going to say no to alcohol outright. They will not allow alcohol on the premises. And there are reasons for that, which we will talk about right now. Yes. But the second one is that if they do allow alcohol, they will most likely charge you an alcohol admittance fee. That's just a fee that you're going to pay just to bring alcohol onto the property. And usually it can range, but usually it's around $500, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It can go anywhere from, $1,000 depending on the status of the venue. More high-end one would be up there. Yeah. But typically average around $500.
Yeah, probably at least $500 is what you would be looking at. So no, that's not towards the alcohol. That's not towards the bartender. That's not towards any of it. That is just now you're allowed to bring alcohol onto the venue property.
Yes. So that fee typically can go towards a number of things. It can go towards extra staffing. It can go towards the extra cleanup cost. It could go towards potential damage to the property or the venue, or just dealing with drunk people in general.
But chasing them off the golf course.
Yeah, chasing them off the golf course. Yep. It's worth the extra cost because your staff has to deal with extra crap. Yes, I said that. But yeah, so, and especially if you need to add extra staffing, that could be just having extra people who are over the age of 21, because anyone under the age of 21, they're technically not allowed to touch any of the alcohol, including the boxes and the bottles. I would lie if I didn't say that, at one point in my career that I had to clean it up because I was the only staff member there. Yeah, I worked in catering, and we'll talk about this too, but caterers technically, their staffing isn't allowed to do it either. But if you're in charge of cleaning up, and I've had to do that, and it's actually not legal.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of venues will have support staff specifically for setup and takedown. and things like that are under the age of 21. But if they are, they can't help clean up the alcohol. So the venue is going to have to bring in people that are 21 and older to do the cleanup.
Or they could be paying for extra security, security guards. So you can actually hire local police for about $100 an hour to come and be security guards. Did you know that?
I didn't. I just want to hire the police for like 1 hour to be like my personal security, so I look cool going somewhere.
Okay, I thought that was going a different direction.
No,
I thought you were your personal stripper or something.
No,
that's totally different.
No, I just want to like roll into a party and be like, "This is my police escort. Don't mind me." Why did your brain immediately go?
I don't know.
I have that kind of energy. I hope not.
I'm married, by the way.
We've been friends for a long time. You can tell.
Cool.
No doubt.
All right. Where were we? Next point. It's also important that you need to know what the venue has to say when it comes to bartenders. Some require you to use a specific bartender. Some have preferred bartenders, but they don't require it. And others just let you bring whoever you want or allow you to just bring alcohol for your event because it's a private event.
If that's because you explained this to me, it's because if it's a private, like weddings have a private guest list technically, so it can count as a private event. Therefore, you don't always have to have the same licensing and insurance.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in the next point. Because a wedding has, like you said, a private guest list, it's considered, quote, a private event, and so you don't have to have certain permits. You can just bring the alcohol, so you don't have to have a bartender that's licensed,
depending on the place and everything. Yeah, but most of them are going to.
Yeah, especially a venue that's been around long enough to know what can happen. They will require you to. Someone has to have the insurance.
Yeah. So we actually have this one bartending company that we had worked with that we loved.
Yes. Shout out to Tin Barrel. I love you.
They are amazing for a lot of reasons, and one of them is they never have one bartender on site. They always have at least two.
That's responsible.
It is. And they have, I think the word that they use is a liaison. And I know it's sort of like a concierge bartender whose job is specifically to make sure that the bride and the groom are taken care of and they're getting the drinks that they want, throughout the evening. And so they really like curate the experience for the bride and groom. But that person is also a very fancy, very classy bouncer. Ooh. So that if something goes down and someone starts to have a problem or something like that, that person is there. So we really loved the idea of having a bartending company where they're also doubling as security for the event because you have alcohol there. So always having security is always helpful. And I actually loved this about them. They said that they do it when they get contacted by potential clients. They ask them, and I can't remember how exactly they worded this, so I'm going to say it not in as eloquent a way. Right. But basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, how drunk do you want you and your guests to become? And if they have, I want to say they said if it was above like a 6 or a 7, somewhere in there. If people are like, oh, we want to get smashed, if it was above or 6 or a 7 something, they were like, we're not the bartender for you, because they really care about the safety of the guests and the security of everybody, making sure everyone is safe. So they are really dedicated to making sure people aren't overserved, which means people being served too much alcohol to the point that you really get drunk. Right.
Yeah. Because this may sound weird, but there could be someone, even though the bartender is serving a certain amount of drinks, say, 2 drinks per person, and they try and keep track. If someone doesn't finish a drink and you've got the crazy Joe that's walking around finishing people's drinks, it's nice to have the fancy bouncer to make sure.
And that would be very easy to do at a wedding. I've never thought about that, but everybody leaves their drink, they go on a dance. I know from cleaning up during a wedding, because we would go around and anything we could clear that was trash off the tables, just to make it look nicer for pictures and just to help with cleanup time later and things like that. We'd go around and be like, oh, this is obviously a plate of, they're done with this is a plate of trash and things like that. It's really hard to tell with drinks because you don't know if someone has left a drink and but so if you wanted to, you could go around while everybody's dancing and get a lot more than your drink. So you could be overserved even if, so make sure you get a responsible bartender. Was that the point of that?
That was the point, yes.
Okay. I know. We went on a journey.
Now, what do most Utah venues do? I'm not going to say all or most, but a good chunk of Utah venues don't even allow alcohol because they don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
They don't even want to worry about what could happen, the extra charges, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, first and foremost, make sure you know what your venue's rules are because they can be additional to what Utah's alcohol rules are.
Yeah.
Utah in general has, if different, rules when it comes to serving alcohol at events. Everybody really knows that because alcohol or Utah is unique, but not in a bad way.
It's a cultural consideration, it's a cultural thing.
It can. Yeah, some venues will have a liquor liability insurance coverage already, but I'm going to tell you right now that most venues do not. Most venues are not going to pay it. It's somewhere between $400 and $1,000 a year, but it also takes a long time, like months and months, to get the approval. The main point of having it is if they're going to sell alcohol. If they're not planning on selling alcohol at their venue, like if it's just a venue and they don't do anything else, golf courses sometimes, if they're attached to the venue, they'll have those insurances. But more often than not, you're not going to find a venue that has that insurance. They're just not going to pay it. So you have to make sure that you have that coverage, and we're going to cover that next. But yeah, so venues in general are not going to have extra coverage for alcohol. They'll have their regular insurances.
Now, some venues will require you to stop serving alcohol at a certain time. That might be a time on the clock, depending on what closing time for events, like end of event time that venues have, or it might just be like 30 to 45 minutes before the event ends.
Yeah.
So is that the last call?
Yeah, last call. Yeah, the last call rule is time that they will serve the alcohol before they start to clean up. You were mentioning that the cleanup, it has to do with not just serving the alcohol, but could just have to do with the cleanup.
Yeah. It's going to take bartenders a long time to do what they're doing, or if it's a different situation and the venue's doing all the alcohol cleanup, that's going to take them a really long time. So that's part of why they have this last call.
Believe it or not, it takes a lot of extra time to clean up an event that has alcohol involved.
Yeah.
So number 2, licenses and permits.
So fun.
Yeah.
Such a romantic subject for your wedding.
But so important. So important. Yeah. It's like the episode we're going to talk about getting your marriage license and all that stuff. Like it's just logistics that got to be done. But yes, licenses and permits differ based on states and differ based on venues.
Because you're going to have, especially if your venue doesn't have the liquor liability insurance. I get better at it every time. It's very hard to say that for me.
I know what jingle you were using for that.
10 times fast. Say liquor liability insurance. I want to try it. Ready?
Liquor liability insurance.
No, the jingle. I like the jingle version. Liquor liability insurance. No, I can't.
No.
If your venue doesn't have that, you got to make sure that your bartending company and all the bartenders are licensed and insured. That's very, very important. But if you're doing something like a non-traditional venue or a backyard wedding, things like that, people will think, oh, it's a backyard wedding. It's a private event. Everyone can just come in. You still want to look at permits, licensing, insurance, all of those things. Because if you're not at a venue, a regular venue, and you're not using a bartending company, then all of those requirements fall on you as the host of the party.
Right.
And you want to make sure you have all that legal stuff covered.
Right. And event insurance isn't as expensive as you think it is. But on top of event insurance is the liquor liability insurance that you're also going to want to have. And you were saying that it's just based on the per person, right?
I think so. Yeah, it depends on guest count and some different things.
So the cost is only between $100 to $400 extra if you need that insurance. So it's not as scary as you might think.
Yeah.
But it is important.
You do want to pay that. You don't want to go, oh, it'll be fine. We'll be able to keep our guests under control.
Right.
If you're enjoying your wedding day, you also don't want to be trying to police your guests either. You just want to have the insurance and know that you're not going to have to be worried about any of that stuff.
Yes. If alcohol is what you truly want at your wedding, it is very important that you know and are aware of Utah's DABS, which is the Utah Department of Alcoholic Beverage Services.
Nice.
Yes, you need to be aware of their regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we mentioned before, weddings are considered private events.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they're considered private events, you don't need any special permits
Mm-hmm.
to host and have alcohol at your event. The venue doesn't need that. You don't need that. However, if you choose to have any form of alcohol being sold, so if you're selling alcohol, aka a cash bar, we'll also get into that again, then you need to be aware that you need to have what's called a single event permit. A single event permit gives you access to be able to sell alcohol at a specific event, only that one-time event.
Yeah.
And it costs anywhere between, it's around $250.
Yeah.
And it takes about 30 days to get it approved. But our number one tip on that would be get way ahead of that.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you give yourself way more than 30 days, at least 60 days. If you have the time up to a year, just make sure you have that permit, because you don't want to delay your wedding because you never got the permit.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have the single event permit if you're not doing a traditional private wedding or you're having alcohol sold. Also, did you know that Utah, you're not allowed to serve alcohol between the hours of 1 a.m. and 9:59 a.m. Yeah, so 10 a.m.
10 a.m. is fine.
Yes, but 10 a.m. Start your party.
10 a.m. Go ahead and get drunk. It's fine. But 1 a.m.
you...
and 10 a.m. to make sure that people aren't,
I don't know,
drinking in the middle of the night.
That's just the rule.
So number 2 is cost and budget.
Whew.
Oh,
This
is where it gets serious. So let's talk about the different kinds of alcohol service you can have at your wedding. You can have open bar, cash bar, limited bar.
Okay.
And a limited bar is if you just have like just beer and wine. Sometimes people will do that option so that alcohol is still a thing, but it's not a ton of different options. And sometimes they'll have a thing. I've seen it where they did like a limited bar and they just had wine and they just like put a bottle of wine on each table, kind of a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And they could just share the bottle of wine around. Or you could have like a limited bar and you have servers, like if you have servers that are they're serving the food or whatever, or the bartending service might just have servers. They come around and they give you just the limited options. They serve you with the limited options that they have. Sometimes people will do it like that, but the most common ones are open bar and cash bar.
Right.
An open bar is where the couple pays for all the alcohol. They pay for the bartender or whoever is serving alcohol, and then the guests drink for free. Meaning the guests can get as many drinks as they want, or you might have a cutoff, or you might do like a voucher system. Sometimes people will do that where it's an open bar, so there's not a limit. There's not only like 2 kinds of things you can have. There's lots of different options, but every guest gets like 2 drink vouchers, kind of a thing, which is like you get 2 tickets, sort of a deal, and you go turn in your ticket to the bartender. You're like, I want my 1 drink now, and then you wait, and then you want your other drink later, or whatever. You turn that into the bartender. So it's an open bar for options, but you only get 2 drinks, kind of a thing. So that's like a voucher system with an open bar. They do that to try and cut down on costs, because then people drink a lot less than they would with a free-for-all open bar. Unless you pass all of your tickets to Uncle Henry, he takes them all. Hopefully that's not going to happen. And to try and ensure that people aren't overserved, because they had all the options they wanted, but they still only got 2 drinks. So sometimes there's that sort of hybrid system with an open bar. But an open bar just means the couple pays for the bartender and they pay for all the alcohol. A cash bar is the couple pays for the bartender and the guests pay for the drinks. So just like you would at a normal bar, you pay per drink for whatever you want. So the bar is just like, there is an option. They have all the alcohol on site and they have a bartender, but then you go and you literally pay per drink for however many drinks that you want to the bartender. So those are the differences, and they're going to be very different for cost. So you need to be aware of that. And people worry about that because they're like, oh, I don't want to be stingy, but you really need to understand the cost of whichever version you want to do.
And then on top of that, another fee you need to be aware of is some venues do charge a corkage fee. This could have been under our venue list, but
it is a cost.
It's an added cost. Yeah, it's an added cost that, and not a lot of venues have it, but some do. And this is the way that venues try to regulate alcohol service without having the bartenders do all the work. So be aware, corkage fees are not as common, but they are there. And that basically just means you're charged per cork popped. So however many bottles they have to open, you'll be charged for.
Yeah.
And you don't usually know that until the end of the night.
And that also ensures like, well, we opened this many bottles, but this bottle we didn't finish. Yeah, but if the cork was popped,
right,
then you get the corkage fee per bottle per cork.
Right.
It's such a funny phrase.
I know.
I don't know why it makes me laugh. The corkage.
Yeah. And then lastly, a fee you need to be aware of is gratuity and service charges. Yes, you do pay in advance. And often bartenders will just incorporate the gratuity into your cost.
Or they'll have a tip jar.
Or they'll have a tip jar.
Yeah.
Right. And so, or both.
Yeah.
They're not as common, but they are there. And that basically just means you're charged per cork popped. So however many bottles they have to open, you'll be charged for.
Yeah.
And you don't usually know that until the end of the night.
And that also ensures like, well, we opened this many bottles, but this bottle we didn't finish. Yeah, but if the cork was popped,
right,
then you get the corkage fee per bottle per cork.
We have our own opinions when it comes to how you treat your vendors, which again, another episode, another day.
Well, and the whole question of should you tip your wedding vendors that you've already paid, that's going to be in that episode about
so
that.
Be aware that can range between 18 to 25%. Again, just depends on how high end your wedding is, which bartender you go with. And at the end of this episode, we are going to break it down for you. We're going to give you an idea of what your cost could be on the low end versus the high end. So you'll have an idea, you'll at least know where to start or what, if it's even a cost you want to deal with. But yeah, so very end, you'll see all that.
So in Utah specifically, both open bars and cash bars are allowed. But you just want to remember that you will have to have a single event permit if you choose to save money by doing a cash bar.
Yeah. Right. Now, is that even saving you money if you have to buy the permit?
I
don't know.
You'd have to decide.
Again, you have to crunch the numbers, but it just gotta be aware.
So number 4 is guest safety and liability. This is a very serious consideration if you're going to have alcohol at your wedding, because how it works is if you are, and you mentioned this a little bit with venues, right? About how you can be held liable.
Yes.
So this is just to reiterate that for guest safety, these are the reasons you want to make sure people don't get overserved. Because if you are technically the host, because the venue has it in their
contract,
that they're covered for this, there are rules in your state, and there are in Utah, they have these too, that if someone gets overserved at your wedding and they go and they drive drunk, we talked about that. But that is why for your guest safety, you want to make sure people aren't getting overserved so that nothing happens that's bad, and then you are not held responsible for if somebody goes and causes an accident or damage or things like that after.
Right. So some tips for that is consider transportation. If you need to call Ubers, if you need to have someone in charge of that, you need to arrange a shuttle, depending on your parking situation, or designated drivers. Just make sure you have all of that in play and it's part of your planning process. Also, make food and water readily available when serving alcohol. Some venues even require you to serve the alcohol with food.
Only when you're having meals.
Right. Yeah. Only when you have meals. And that has, the reason is because people can get a little less drunk when they're eating it with food, or when they're consuming alcohol with food. So be aware that that's also a really good idea. Maybe only having your bar available shortly before a meal. I know people like to cocktail hours after ceremony before the meal. Good idea. Fun idea. Keeps people busy, but just maybe have some appetizers to go with it. Things like that.
Well, and it's different than last call.
Right.
Sometimes they'll just have a regulation on you can only serve alcohol from this time to this time specifically as well. So, which is different than you have to cut off at this time. Sometimes they'll be like, no, you can only serve alcohol between 4 and 9 p.m. or something. That's just a number I made up.
Yeah. And just, again, reiterating the importance of having a bartender who can control your crowd and the insurances that they have covered. Make sure that you get someone covered. I know it sounds cheaper and easier just to have, your Uncle Joe come and serve the alcohol because he's old enough and he's, quote, responsible, but there's a lot of liability that comes with that, and it's not worth it.
You want your guests to feel safe.
Yeah.
You want you to feel safe.
And the venue, everybody. You don't want your event to be shut down because that could happen.
That can happen.
The venue, and if your venue is close to neighbors, like houses, they have the right to call the authorities and shut down your event if you are disobeying any rules. So be aware.
Number 5, guest experience and cultural considerations that you have.
Utah has a culture?
It's so weird. We had no idea about that. That affects all the wedding stuff. But with guest experience, anytime I hear about this, I think about this woman at this wedding. But I was the manager on site. And she was very much enjoying the open bar. She was very happy about it. And she came staggering up to me and she looked really confused. She's like, oh, I said, are you okay? And she said, I can't find my husband anywhere. I don't know where he is. And this man is just smiling, such a big smile, came up behind her and tapped her on the shoulder. And she turned around and said, ah, there he is. And she was so happy to see her husband every time because she lost him a few times throughout the evening. He was aware of the state she was in. He was sticking close. But she would forget where he was and she'd wander looking for him and he was just kind of trailing behind. And then he would be like, I'm right here. And she was so happy every time she found him again. But so I got to watch them joyfully reunite a few times. But she was having a good guest experience. Her guest experience was right up there with the open bar.
That's perfect. Another way to kind of control your guest experience, especially if you have a wide range of types of people coming to your event. If you have people that drink, those that don't drink.
For Utah, that's a cultural consideration.
Different religions, all the things. It's just important to be considerate. Not just cultural, though. You've got just the pregnant people and the addicts trying to those that try and go through AA, it's just being considerate of all the different people in their walks of life and offering different options. So Utah, this is a benefit having your wedding in Utah, is that there are a plethora of options when it comes to having non-alcoholic options that appear the same. So you've got mocktail bars, which are huge here. And soda bars. People love soda bars because it's tasty.
And customizable.
Yes, and it's just a thing right now. And so it's very trendy. For example, you could split it up and do a cocktail and a mocktail bar. And so one bartender can serve both. There's many, many bartenders in Utah that are happy to serve both. And that they customize their drinks in a way that it's the same drink, same taste, except one doesn't have alcohol. They pride themselves on that.
Like I've had amazing mocktails at events where you feel so fancy still.
Standing out by not having a drink like everybody else. Again, if you're pregnant or something, you don't necessarily want to point that out. Then having the mocktail option that looks just like the cocktail option is so brilliant. And it's very considerate.
No better state to
do it in than Utah.
Your non-alcoholic options because they're amazing.
And you're not going to get any judgment from people. Bartenders love to accommodate both options. And it is great that Utah has those options because some bartenders out of Utah State, they don't want to do that. They'll just do cocktails. And then you have to get a separate bar that's for mocktails. And then you're paying extra fees and all those things. So getting a bartender, a company that can do both is so much better, so much more fun.
Well, and it's fun for everybody too. Just, you want the teenagers and the kids and everybody to feel cool too. It's not just like, oh, look what we have. You get tap water. For you. That's all.
But if you still want to have some sort of fun drinks, a soda bar is a great option.
The his and her version with, because you can do that with cocktails. But they do them also with mocktails or with dirty sodas or customized sodas and things like that, where you do like his favorite, her favorite, and they give them cute names.
I love that.
I'm a sucker for cute names, like cocktail or mocktail at a wedding, where it's like his and then it's got an adorable name.
Just even in naming it after the bride and groom, like, oh, I want the Lizzie. Yes, thank you.
Adorable. So another thing you want to consider for guest experience, based on the type of alcohol service that you're going to have, is managing lines. Right? If you have an open bar, you're going to have a lot less of a line than if you're doing a cash bar, because a cash bar, you have to stop and pay for it. And that just slows down the line. It's fine. Just be aware that that's a thing to consider. You're going to have more of a line. It's going to take longer to get people their drinks if you're doing a cash bar versus an open bar or some kind of alcohol service directly to the table, directly to the guests. So that's something you just want to think about for guest experience. We coordinated a wedding recently, and at the wedding, I was so grateful because it's something you want to make sure you think about for your guest experience is the number of bartenders.
Yes.
Sometimes people will be like, oh, we just need one bartender. That'll be fine.
No,
this
one's
wedding
never
only
enough.
had, was 150 people?
Yeah,
150 guests at the reception. And they got 2 bartenders. You might think, oh, one is fine. They wanted to make sure. And maybe that's just a regulation their bartending company had. Oh, we always have 2. It was a really good thing they had 2 bartenders because they were busy the entire time. And I remember being grateful. I'm really glad that the couple made sure to pay for 2 bartenders doing service the whole time, because if it had been one person, they never would have kept up with the orders. No. And that would have really cut into the guest experience.
Sometimes 2 isn't even enough.
Yeah, like, they were so busy the whole time.
Yeah, they don't ever stop.
They didn't stop to eat. We took them plates of food. They couldn't even stop and come to the vendor table to eat. And I was like, can one do it? And you could eat in shifts, but they were too afraid to walk away from the bar.
Yeah.
So we just took them food, and then one of them would eat and be helping stuff and things. And that was with 2 bartenders for 150 people. Yeah. So you want to think about that with your guest experience. Make sure that you have enough bartenders to smoothly and efficiently serve everyone you have.
Yeah. So no specific regulations in Utah when it comes to this. It's just more of the considerations.
The cultural.
Yeah. Just be aware of cultural differences and those kinds of things. So number 6 is timeline and flow. Did I say timeline?
I think you did say timeline. It goes with drinking.
Timeline.
With your timeline. We have not had anything to drink. We really haven't.
I had
just caffeine.
Okay, and I gotta tell a story. This is so silly. It has nothing to do with weddings. But when I was dating my husband and we were up till the crack of dawn, but we didn't sleep in the same apartment yet. We were trying to be good. And I had to drive home, and I was driving my dad's old not monster truck, but it was an old beater, big truck. And it was a diesel, and I was driving home once, and I'm going down Provo Center Street, and I was driving so slow because I had fallen asleep.
You were tired.
I was so tired. I had to go home, and I don't even get very far, and I get pulled over, and this cop comes over, and he's showing his light into the backseat, and he's looking all over, and he's blinding me, and he's like, "You got anything to drink?" And little innocent me, and I'm like, "I had a Sprite." And he laughed, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you could go home." Like, wake up and go home. And it was so funny. Like, obviously I wasn't drinking, and there was no alcohol in the car. There was no smell anywhere. And so he clearly knew and was like, "Yeah, you silly little girl, go away." It was funny.
So another thing to consider with your timeline is, are you having any alcohol related events in your wedding?
Timeline?
Yes. Okay. That you need to really consider how much time that'll take in your event. I'm talking about something like a champagne toast, right?
Yeah.
People still like to, they'll do a champagne toast where, even if you don't do a champagne tower, which just terrifies me. I used to have this nightmare that I would get asked as a coordinator to be the one that set up a champagne tower, and I would break everything, and that's a stress coordinator dream right there.
Fear.
But even if you're not doing a champagne tower where all the glasses are stacked, even if you're just doing a champagne toast, to do a champagne toast, you have to have all the glasses set out in advance, and usually you have to have champagne in every single glass, so that you can try, because even if it's all ready to go, handing out a cup to 150 people or however many it
takes time.
It takes time. And that's once everything's in the cups are out, the champagne's in it, just the handing out takes time. Let alone filling all the cups.
Yeah.
A wedding we coordinated, we actually were on hold for the ceremony because the bar was in the same room as the ceremony, and they wanted the champagne toast close enough after the end of the ceremony that all the cups had to be set up, the glasses had to be set up before the ceremony, so that they would have enough time in the time frame they had after the ceremony before the champagne toast to pour everything.
Yeah.
And so we were like holding for the bar, which was crazy.
Yeah.
That was the holdup, because they couldn't be clinking glasses all through the ceremony, setting up all these cups.
Yeah.
So know that if you're doing something like that with alcohol, it will take longer than you think.
Yeah.
And you need to build that time into your timeline.
Yeah. Again, another episode all about this, but creating buffers in your timeline is a huge tip we could give you, and that's one of the reasons. Also, just again, deciding when last call is going to be, and making sure you have enough time for the alcohol cleanup, because it does take you extra time, up to an hour extra, especially if you are in charge of your own cleanup in a venue. Number 8 are the practical extras to be aware of. These are little costs that add up quick, like ice, cups, mixers, garnishes. Who's responsible? Didn't you have something to say about garnishes?
This isn't even just about cost. This is a really weird note that you would only know if you had cleaned up after a wedding with alcohol. Be aware of, and we're going to talk all about kitchen prep things and that kind of thing in a different episode. But if you do not have access to a normal sink, okay, or whoever is doing cleanup doesn't have access to a normal sink, venue where we were had the only access that we had to dump alcohol after was a bathroom sink with like the type of drain in it that's the little tiny holes, right?
Yes. So big things can't go down.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to anyway, which is fine. But so we had to be dumping and then cleaning out garnish by the handful, because the drinks had all these beautiful garnishes in them, and they all got left behind. And because that was our only option for cleaning up the alcohol after, we're having to do that and then try to clean up garnish as we went. That is a really weird note. But be aware of the type of alcohol that you're going to be serving. If you're having things like garnishes, make sure that that's something, not only the garnish is going to cost more, who's going to bring that if you're not doing normal bartending or whatever, but also clean up, you have to be aware of those kinds. It's a very weird detail.
Yeah, weird things you don't think about.
Yeah, until you do it.
Until you do it.
Oh no.
Yep. Yep. Also, something people don't think about is where to store the alcohol. Bartenders will usually put it around their bar space, but sometimes they need a kitchen space.
Yeah.
But guess what?
It takes up a lot of room.
Some venues don't have kitchens for you to use. Some have extra rooms, but you could be charged if you use those extra rooms. So you really need to know way beforehand where you can put the bottles that you need to store the extra alcohol, including extra food. But right now we're talking about alcohol. So just be aware, you've got boxes and boxes of stuff. Where are you going to put it? Where's it going to be so it's not an eyesore?
And so the bartenders can still access it as often and as fast as they need to. Right. It's not like up in the attic somewhere. You can store it up there. They're not going to be able to get
in the bride's room. No.
Yes. That sounds like a great place to store.
Great.
Probably for the bride.
Yep. Anyway.
She could rediscover her husband every 5 minutes. Hey! There he is!
Yep. And so lastly is the cleanup rules. Just knowing people spill and they're a little more clumsy when they're drunk, and just know cleanup will take more time. So know the venue rules as well, because most venues do, even if they include cleanup and setup in there, just knowing people spill and they're a little more clumsy when they're drunk, and just know cleanup will take more time. So know the venue rules as well, because most venues do, even if they include cleanup and setup in their inclusions, you have to be aware that alcohol is usually still on you, because that's again an extra thing that the staff members are not allowed to touch if they're under the age of 21. Even if they are over the age of 21, you cannot just assume that they're allowed to clean that up. So you need to talk to your bartender, talk to your venue, make sure that if the cleanup falls on you, you are taking charge of that, and you are being responsible for the disposal of all your boxes. There's always so many boxes.
Yeah.
And bottles, and again, cups, garnishes, and know where you're going to be dumping the extra liquid and all of that.
And however long you think it's going to take you to clean up, just double it.
Yeah. So in Utah specifically, just be considerate. I am surprised sometimes, and you do have a good group of people in Utah who are considerate. The ones that are always willing to help set up chairs and take down tables and things like that. But when alcohol is involved, I am always surprised by how inconsiderate people can get. And that partly has to do with the fact that you are intoxicated. And so just be aware way before the fact. Know that the venue is not in charge of cleaning up your alcohol unless they specifically say so. Then that's fine. Also, bartenders just know what they're in charge of. And then whatever is left is on you. Make sure that you are considerate and responsible, and that you have the designated drivers and designated responsible people to clean up and who are not drunk. Because I'll tell you, I've worked with some weddings and everybody was drunk. Everybody had alcohol in their system. So whether you think you're drunk or not, your judgment is a little impaired. And so you may look at the mess and be like, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal. This is a normal mess. This is a normal venue cleanup mess. And the venue will look at it and be like, no, it's not. And yes, they may have the fee already in place for the cleanup, but just in general, as a normal human being, be considerate and responsible, and to clean up after yourselves, because you're not animals. And that's just one of the tips I'd have to say. And unfortunately, I have to say it because Utah does have this problem.
So to have a wedding in Utah with alcohol, let's do the math.
Math.
Approximate.
Yes.
Math, right?
Yes.
So it could cost you approximately on the low end.
Yes.
We're talking, okay, so for a wedding of 100-ish people.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 100
We'll put all this on the screen for you.
Yeah. But low end.
Yes. Low end, if you're looking at trying to just do alcohol, but do it in a responsible but well-managed way. Frugal, that's the word. Frugal way. Yep. So you'll probably need a single event permit. So you've got the $250 venue alcohol fee. Let's say the low end is $200, even though most are upwards of $5. We'll say $2. Bartender full service. For a first full service bar, $500. 2 bartenders over 5 hours, including setup. Then you still have the cost of alcohol, which typically is around $20 a person. So let's say $2,000. And then gratuity on the low end, 18% of that $2,000 is $360. And then a potential corkage fee, you're at $150. So your total, this could be a little less, is around $3,460. So that's good to be aware of, especially if maybe your event's more like 50 people. Then you're like, okay, $3,500 for alcohol with service. Yeah.
What about the high end?
On the high end, let's go with the higher numbers. So you've got the single event permit, $200, $250, and then the alcohol fee is upwards more than $500. Bartender service, let's say $1,200. Cost of alcohol, now we're thinking more full service open bar. So you got $40 per person. So now you're at $4,000 for just alcohol. Gratuity, you've got potentially 20% of that $4,000, so $800. And then the corkage, if some outside bottles or special wines, you got $300. So you're upwards now of $7,000 just to serve alcohol at your wedding. That doesn't include your venue costs, your other costs, your photographer, your cake, and
every other vendor.
Every other vendor. Yeah. So just if you have the budget and it's important to you, then go for it. But our number one probably budget bride tip is to save money, don't serve alcohol.
Yeah, don't serve alcohol.
It's just an easy cost to cut out, and people will still have fun.
Well, and if you want, I understand. Like we talked about this, the party vibe, as far as like we talked about mocktails, those kinds of things still make it feel a lot like a party. If for you specifically, if you're like, oh, but I want the party and I want, you could consider something like,
you want to take the edge off a little bit.
Don't pregame like crazy. That's not a thing that you should do, because there are a lot of wedding stories about wedding parties who pregamed real hard and
at 9:59 a.m. right?
Yes, they were like 10 a.m.
It's time.
It's time to get drunk. And like didn't make it to the wedding until like 2 hours late, the whole wedding party, because they were all too drunk. But if you want to do something like, in the bridal suite while you're getting ready with your girls, you can do like a mimosa or something. If you want to have that kind of experience, those little things, if you want to do like a private champagne toast with just you and your groom, something like that, that's really sweet. And so that people talk about loving those moments anyway. Having that be a private thing as opposed to trying to provide champagne for everyone to do a champagne toast. Trying to provide alcohol for all of your guests. So you could still have a few little things like that. But in general, yes, it's going to be a huge budget saver if you just don't have it,
you just
cut it out. Or you come up with some kind of a limited system.
But that's the budget tip. So we tried to give you tons of options, tons of tips so that you're aware, because if alcohol is your thing and you want it there, do it. Have it. have a fun party. Just make sure you're aware of everything that comes with it so that you're not surprised or angry later because of it. That was a lot.
That was so much.
But hopefully it was all good information.
Yeah. Be educated. Be very educated on these kinds of things specifically.
Yeah, so that you can have the best wedding you can.
Yeah, that's what we want for you.
If you are a wedding vendor or venue that wants to be showcased, or if you know of a wedding vendor that we have to interview, please email us all of your suggestions, your questions, and your feedback to episodes@utahweddingcentral.com.
I have a story that does relate to weddings and that as well. So I was, this was a time when you and I were both handling events, just one person. We were managing events, each of us. So we were alternating, trying to handle these long weddings, right? And I had handled an event, and the cleanup was really intense on that. I don't remember why, but it took a really long time. So I didn't leave the venue till like 3 a.m. I lived an hour and a half away from the venue at the time. So I was rolling home, and I drove really slow the whole way. I drove like slower than I would have the whole way home. Yeah. So it took me about 2 hours to get home. And right before I got home, I got pulled over, and because it's like 5 in the morning at this point. And he was like, "Have you been drinking?" I say, "No." And he said, "Okay, because you were driving really slow, and you also were sort of drifting out of your lane there for a minute." And I was like, "I'm really tired. I just got off work." I wasn't too tired to drive. Yeah. I just was
being cautious.
Yes, and I was just really and then right there at the end, it was starting to get to the point where it's like, you need to pull over, but I was almost to my house. And so he pulled me over, and he was like, "Oh, okay, what do you do?" So we talked about it for a minute, and he could tell, no, I was just really tired. But the next weekend, I didn't get pulled over again.
Oh, I was like,
it's fine. But I worked a wedding, and we had to do the alcohol cleanup.
Oh, gosh.
And at the time, there were like, they had broken a bunch of rules about the alcohol. And because of that, I was there again till like 3 a.m, cleaning up all the bottles and everything. And in the process of cleaning everything up, got so much alcohol on myself, trying to get it all into the dumpster. And I thought, if I get pulled over again, he's going to roll down the window, recoil at the smell of alcohol, and be like, "Yeah, you're just tired again. You definitely are drunk." I was like, "No, it wouldn't be." I was in my head arguing the case with, I'm going to get pulled over again, and I'm going to have to be like, "I promise, I've just spilled it all over myself." Drunk. I was like, "No, it wouldn't be." I was in my head arguing the case with, I'm going to get pulled over again, and I'm going to have to be like, "I promise, I've just spilled it all over myself." But that sounds like a made-up thing. I just spilled alcohol.
True story.
At work. Yes.
I have too, cleaning up alcohol, and it just spills, and
But I did make it all the way home when I didn't get pulled over again, so that was
good
times.
Crisis averted.